This video is aimed at advanced developers, and it shows a technique that you can use to circumvent the fact that Ajax callbacks are asynchronous. So in this example, which is certainly somewhat contrived but does illustrate the point well, you can see we've got a grid component, and when we click this button, we're going to open up a dialog component, and then we're going to pull some arbitrary data from this grid and populate the dialog with it. So you can see here I press this button, and there you can see we've populated the dialog with the first name and last name from that field. Then if I close that down and open up the dialog over there, I can see I'm pulling in the data over there. So when you create this button over here, your first inclination would be to just create two sequential actions in Action Javascript, but the fact of the matter is that that doesn't work, because this open dialog component is an Ajax callback, which means that it's asynchronous. So the code that you would have following this action to say populate this dialog will execute immediately. As soon as this command is executed, this next command will run, even though this command here has not yet finished executing. And the fact that Ajax callbacks are asynchronous does make programming multiple steps in an action script more complicated. So let's take a look at how in this particular case we circumvented the problem, although there are certainly other ways in which you could approach this problem. So you can see that the first action is just a standard action which opens up a dialog called My Dialog, and the only relevant thing I'd like to point out here is that I've given the dialog an explicit alias of MD, short for My Dialog. So next you can see here that I'm gonna then execute some inline JavaScript, and if I go and look at this inline JavaScript, you'll see that what I'm doing is I'm creating an arbitrary JSON object, a JavaScript object called obj, and I'm populating two properties in this JSON object, one called ID, which has the grid object name of the current grid, of the parent grid, and it also has the row number of the current row. So this object here, this JSON object, has two properties, ID and row, and then what you can see is I'm storing this object in a global JavaScript variable called __ V1. So the way in which we make a global JavaScript variable is we stick it inside the window object, because the window object is the global JavaScript namespace. So now inside this global variable __ V1, we're going to be able to read a .id property and a .row property. Then basically we say if the dialog object already exists, and the first time we click this button, this inline JavaScript is going to run before the dialog object exists, because as we discussed earlier, this is an asynchronous callback. This command executes, and then immediately this command executes before the dialog actually exists. So initially this object, this global object MD _ DLG object, will be undefined, and so this code here will not execute. So let's pause now and pick this up in the next video.